Welcome to the Spaghetti Junction Boys podcast, coming to you from beautiful Atlanta, Georgia. I am your host, William Hildebrand, joined by my co-host, Doc Jacobson, and Ben Ralston, I think. Before we get started, I want to thank Rosati's in Buckhead, the #1 place to watch all the action in Atlanta. Over 40 big screen TVs, over 100 beers on tap, the best wings in Atlanta, the best pizza in Atlanta, the coldest beer in Atlanta. Support the people who support us. Support Rosati's in Buckhead. Now, last week, Doc and I took you through everything with our Vegas trip. Really got into the weeds with that. A lot of talking about oases. Oh, okay. And this week, we actually have some football to talk about. We have two big games in the SEC, one of which my Ole Miss Rebels taking on the Alabama Crimson Tide. So if you're the kind of person who likes to invest in Tums, because I'm going to be buying them in bulk. And depending on if Ole Miss wins or Ole Miss loses, invest in Screwball, because I'm going to be drinking a lot of it regardless. So just
whoa, no free ads.
Oh, that's right. I will be drinking a peanut butter whiskey. Who knows what it could be? Honestly, it could be any of the peanut butter whiskeys. And also antacids. That's not necessarily Tums. I could be taking their knockoff from Walgreens, Tim's. So then we also have Georgia versus Arkansas between the hedges. So Ben, I'll start with you. The Dogs.
Yeah, I actually watched Arkansas versus Texas A&M, rewatched it this afternoon while working.
Right.
First of all, Jimbo Fisher should be fired immediately.
Okay.
The play calling and how unorganized and messy A&M looked for how much he's getting paid was startling. Like they went away from the run pretty much immediately when that was working. Arkansas plays 3 down linemen pretty much exclusively and then stands up 8 behind them. And Isaiah Spiller was like getting 8 yards without even trying. And Jimbo was like, you know what, replacement quarterback, we're just going to air it out for a while and not give it to this running back. And then just horrid tackling. You know, one comment about both of these games, and I felt a little better about after rewatching Arkansas, was both the Alabama and Georgia games. They're hyped, you know, top 15 matchups, but the point spreads, Vegas just isn't buying it. So I think that's kind of something intriguing to keep an eye on. Is Arkansas and Ole Miss, are they for real, or is this just a matter of, you know, there's not really anyone else in the country that's won any decent games so far. So I'm excited to see just the competitiveness of it. I do feel like one of the two will be pretty good. And I'm almost, after rewatching Arkansas today and knowing what I know about Georgia's defense, and I think it's the Ole Miss Alabama game is going to be the closer one. I just feel like Matt Corral, it's like a 3-point shooter, you know.
You're saying, sir.
I feel like Matt Corral could be down 2 touchdowns and could erase that deficit in like a blink of an eye. Whereas Arkansas, I don't think has that firepower. So that's my thoughts just kind of heading into it. I hope I'm right. I hope the Dogs do win by at least 2 touchdowns. I think the line is kind of too crazy to touch, but I'm excited. It's honestly, even outside the SEC, great weekend of football.
Yeah, on the opponent's piece, I'm not sure that we know anything in college football at this point. We gave Oregon all the credit in the world for going into the horseshoe and beating Ohio State. And then meanwhile, Ohio State was in a dogfight with the Gophers. And now the Gophers go and get blanked by Colorado, right? Didn't they lose by 1 million to Colorado? They lost to someone last week. And then you see we gave Georgia all the credit in the world for beating Clemson. And then Clemson turns the ball over against South Carolina State. They win by 6 points against Georgia Tech, and then they lose at NC State, who got the shit kicked out of them in Starkville 2 weeks prior. Like, what the hell do we know about anyone? We thought about Alabama. Oh, what a win over the U. And then the U looks beat. It's for bad. The U looks terrible. And so then their other wins, Southern Miss, Mercer, and then Florida. And the Florida win's fine, but I don't think we really know much about anyone. Ole Miss has shot up the rankings. Their wins are over Louisville, who, after they beat Louisville, you thought Louisville sucks. But then Louisville's won 3 straight games, beat UCF, I'm trying to remember who they beat last week. Florida State. But then their other wins are over Austin Peay and then Tulane. And by the way, Oklahoma, and I'm going to get to this in Gamblin Dans. Fuck you, Oklahoma. You suck. All right? Just putting it out there. I don't know if we have any Oklahoma fans. I'm guessing I'm about to find out after this goes live. But I was a little nervous about Tulane because of Oklahoma, and then Tulane just gets stomped on. I think Tulane's 1-3 now. You can't cover against Tulane. You can't cover against Nebraska. You almost lose to West Virginia. Go straight to hell, Oklahoma. But yeah, so we don't know about anybody. And Arkansas, they at least have a win over Texas, who is scoring points out the ass out there. Sorry. And so I'm really interested to see that. I'm not sure what we're going to see in Georgia versus Arkansas, because Arkansas seems to have a pretty good defense, and they're trying to play like the kind of ball Brett Bielema wanted to play there the other year, but just were unsuccessful with, it seems like, because KJ Jefferson's not exactly lighting the world on fire, and I have to find out how many Arkansas listeners we have. But I think this will be interesting for Georgia, because Georgia scored on UAB, which Bill Clark typically has a decent defense, but again, it's UAB still. Scored a zillion on Vanderbilt, but as we know, Vanderbilt's horrific at football. Like what Vanderbilt is to academics, you just go to the other end on football. They don't win a party. It's just things are bad in Nashville. Once you step outside the classroom, things are not going great in the Music City. No offense to Belmont and Lipscomb, but then they also beat the shit out of South Carolina. South Carolina was in a dogfight with ECU. I mean, what the hell are we talking about here? So Georgia's played one good defense. Even though Clemson has sucked on offense, their defense has still looked really good, despite Brian Beasley being out and so forth and missing a couple other dudes. But Georgia struggled against that defense. Scored 3 points. Of course, there was the pick six that was the decider in the game. So I think it'll be interesting to see how Georgia's offense does against Arkansas's defense. I think that's the biggest thing I'll be looking for in that game. I don't think Arkansas scores on the Georgia defense. I really don't. There's a dudes. I mean, Mark Stoops has said it. Shane Beamer said it. There's dudes on that Georgia defense. And then on the Ole Miss side, I'm bully. I'm bully about the Rebs. I can't get myself off the Rebs. I'm going to be devastated if Ole Miss, in fact, loses this game that we're a 14.5-point underdog in on the road at the defending national champion. But Bryce Young doesn't throw the ball down the field. I believe he's 10th in the SEC in throwing the ball down the field. Ole Miss went to Iowa State in the summer, borrowed the 3-2-6 defense. It's been working like gangbusters with former dog Otis Reese there patrolling at Star, Husky, whatever you want to call it. Matt Corral, leading Heisman odds-on favorite at the moment. Had a great game against Alabama last year. It's gonna be really interesting. Lane Kiffin has been trolling Nick Saban all week, talking about this is their best team they've ever had. They have 0 holes. He said in his press conference the other day, "Oh yeah, I know they're gonna be dropping 8 against us, so we're practicing for that." That's just to fuck with Saban. I know what they're gonna do. When do you see a coach say, "I know what they're gonna do" ahead of time? He has no idea what Saban's gonna do, or if he does, it's not gonna be the drop 8. And of course, Matt Corral's responded really well. Louisville tried that same thing against him. So that's a lot of me just talking about a team I really like, and then a lot of football stuff that no one really cares about. So Doc, over to you.
Well, you guys forgot about the most important game of the weekend. Iowa State hosted the Kansas Jayhawks, baby. Come on.
So we're
No.
take a break, or I don't know what we do at this point, because I refuse to talk about Jayhawk football.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm getting to the point where Iowa State has totally stomped on my soul, ripped out my heart, and ate it in front of me. So I don't know. I'm an empty shell of myself. Check out my Twitter if you want to see more info.
Yeah, Doc was on like a celebrity meltdown after that Iowa State game. That was really curious to see. He was in a dark place. I don't want to say I warned you after the Northern Iowa game. You kept going on about the Super Bowl and this, that, and the other, and the state of Iowa to host a Super Bowl. That's not a if you build it they will come thing, but don't say I didn't try to warn you.
No, fair enough. For the YouTube watchers, I'm wearing my death row shirt because Iowa State's on death row. So hate to say it. Death Row Records. Check them out.
Yeah. All right, so let's get to Gamblin Dans. Speaking of people in dark places, Jesus, it was another rough week. I experienced my first rough week of the year. I started out 3-2, then had a 4-1 week, and I went 0-5 last week. So that brings my record to 7-8 on the year. Ben went 2-2-1, so he's now 5-8-2 on the year. Thanks for making that complicated, Ben. 2 ties, and we're 3 weeks in. Pick something with a hook for once in your life. Doc went 2-3 last week, so he is 3-11-1 on the year.
3-11.
So Ben is not with Death Row Records. So Ben is very bullish on his picks this week. I don't know. He just came back from Vegas. He saw LeBron James. I'm thinking that has something to do with this, being king adjacent.
Yeah, I mean, the good vibes just pour off of that guy. You walk past him, you're instantly a winner. So, take that for what it's worth.
Yeah. So you've got Ben being close to LeBron James in his picks. You have Doc sitting in his room listening to My Chemical Romance with the Iowa State replay affecting his picks. And then me, I'm just rage stomping through my house because I thought I covered that NC State Clemson game for my whammy. Found out I missed by half a point because it went to overtime. So I don't know. It's this. You can go straight to hell as well for going over that line. So Doc, why don't you get us started with your first two?
All right. I found a little bit of success, very small word success, going 2-3 last week, staying all NFL. So I'm doing it again. The old rinse and repeat. My first game I have for you people, let's talk Kansas City Chiefs at Philadelphia. Kansas City coming off a tough loss last week against the Chargers. Everybody on ESPN saying Kansas City's dead. Patrick Mahomes sucks. No longer the greatest quarterback in the NFL right now. I think that's all locker room talk. That's bulletin board material. Kansas City comes out and whoops the brakes off of these Philadelphia Eagles. I'm taking Kansas City -7. Pick number 2. This team really showed me something last week, just making Tom Brady look ineffective. That defense was solid. They killed the Bucs last week. I like Rams -4.5 at the Cardinals. Only reason Cardinals covered that game against Jacksonville was a pick 6 at the end. Not sold on it. They're a good team. It'll be tight, but I think the Rams defense kind of locks them down, makes them one-dimensional, keeps Kyler in the box, wins that game by a touchdown at least. So pick number 1, Kansas City -7. Pick number 2, Rams -4.5.
All right. So, when you're trying to reverse some bad fortune, you make an offering to a deity of some kind. And so I'm going to make 2 here. I feel like an underdog after last week. The R. Kelly jumping out of seat, fighting for my life here after that 0-5 week. So I feel like an underdog. All right. So out of my 5 picks, I'm going 4 dogs. Not 1, not 2, not 3. I'm going 4 dogs. The other deity I'm praying to is I'm going to the Church of Doc. And I'm giving him an offering with my first 2 picks, and I'm hoping I am rewarded for such. Maryland plus 3.5 Friday night against the Iowa Hawkeyes. What did the late Michael Quirk used to say all last year? He used to say, "What's Vegas trying to tell you? If you don't understand a line, just lean into it. All right? Don't take the cheese. You're going to get smacked. All right?" Maryland, unranked against number 5 Iowa. Iowa's another team that got a huge boost from beating Iowa State, and then they have struggled since then. They won that game against Indiana, then they beat Iowa State. It was a lot of turnovers. Now they've struggled against the MAC since then, and we're still saying they're the 5th best team in the country. There's only 4 teams that we think are better football teams than prolific Iowa. Come on. Talia Tagovailoa has looked very good so far this year, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. A lot of people aren't talking about. A lot of credit to Mike Locks. This line you would think would be bigger. It's also weird to think Iowa and Maryland are in the same conference, but that's for another day. So give me the Turtles plus 3.5. The next offering I'm making to the Church of Doc, give me Kansas State Wildcats plus 10.5 against the Oklahoma Sooners. What was I saying earlier? Oklahoma's not covering. They're not. They struggle against Nebraska. They struggle against West Virginia. They struggle against Tulane. Kansas State, not bad this year. I know. They got into the rankings, promptly lost, fell out of the rankings. But Kansas State tends to give Oklahoma problems. Kansas State's won that conference a couple of times. Kansas State's typically well-disciplined, and something that we're seeing with a lot of teams this year is those 6th and even 7th year COVID year guys, the super seniors and the super seniors. And Kansas State specializes in getting dudes, developing them. They're one of the big rosters that you see a ton of seniors on, a ton of juniors on. You don't see a ton of young guys playing, but Deuce Vaughn, incredible running back for Kansas State. At the hook, I love this. Oklahoma's not covering. One of the best running backs in the country. Home game in the Little Apple. Choo, give me the Wildcats.
Well, Mike, I will do you one better, my friend. I'm going 5 underdogs.
Woo!
And let me tell you my thought here. I'm trying to get a little bit more methodical with my picks, a little bit better reasoning, because I can't watch every game. I'm not a supercomputer sitting on my couch every Saturday just digesting stats in football. But guess what? Those things exist. And I'm going to use them to my advantage. So let me start by, I don't know a lot about these games or these teams, but I found 5 lines where the computer picked the underdog to win outright. So I'm taking the points on the dogs. And the first one we're starting with, computer model is seeing Michigan over Wisconsin, yet Michigan is a 2-point dog. So give me Michigan plus 2. Rushing attack, Wisconsin may not be as good as people think. Michigan needs a statement win if they're going to be for real. They can't just be the Queens of September. So give me Michigan plus 2. The other one, Notre Dame and Cincinnati, big matchup. Notre Dame, again, looking for that marquee win. Cincinnati probably say the same, but again, computer model has Notre Dame barely winning outright, yet Vegas is giving them 2. So give me Notre Dame plus 2.
Robots trying to take our jobs.
All right, Ben Zuckerberg with the algorithms over there. I like it. Pick number 3, we're going with my favorite team in the NFL. That is the Minnesota Vikings. Huge underdog win against Seattle last week. They're at home against the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland likes to play teams tight. I think Minnesota's run game really kind of steps up this week, and we have a battle down there. I think Minnesota probably wins money line, but I like the plus 3 on it as well. So I'm taking Minnesota plus 3. Pick number 4, we're going to the Monday night game, Raiders at Chargers. I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I don't care. I'm sold on this Raiders team. Their offense looks solid. Derek Carr looks like a Super Bowl or an MVP candidate, could take a trip to the Super Bowl. Chargers have struggled week in, week out. I think this is a very tight game. I saw this line, and, kind of like what you said with Vegas and the cheese there, Mr. Hildebrand. It just doesn't make any sense. How can the Raiders not even be favored in this game? Plus 3.5. I'm taking it all day. Raiders plus 3.5.
Ben's eating the cheese. Ben's all about that cheese. Weren't the Vikings like 1.5-point dogs? Wasn't that line 1.5 against the Seahawks?
Yeah, it was 1.5, and they won outright by like 13. It was an awesome game.
So for my next two picks, give me the Carolina Panthers plus 4.5 against the Cowboys. I know Cowboys Nation is all about the boys right now, with Dak playing well, with Ezekiel Elliott having 2 touchdowns last week. The defense is actually flying all over the place. Trevon Diggs looks really good. Of course, Micah Parsons got bumped a little late, but he's looked really good. But Carolina, despite losing Christian McCaffrey, I still think is a dangerous team. Joe Brady and Matt Rule, that's a pretty dangerous combination. Sam Darnold's looked incredible. Sam Darnold has looked so damn good. Adam Gase is never going to work again. How could you, with how good Sam Darnold has looked in Carolina? I really like that defense. Made a big trade with Jacksonville to get C.J. Henderson, former top 10 pick, to replace J.C. Horn, who broke a couple bones in his foot on Thursday. I could see Carolina winning this outright, but plus 4.5, this just seems like a chase game that's just back and forth, that this is going to go into the witching hour. So I love getting 4.5 here for Carolina and their big, scary robot cat. The next one, I'm going to Athens. Under 48.5 for Arkansas and Georgia. I don't like to speak in absolutes. I'm kidding. I love that. I love speculating, but I'm going to speak in some more absolutes here, in that Georgia is going to hold Arkansas's offense. I do not see Arkansas scoring on that machine. I mean, sure, Georgia's not played a good offense so far this year. Vandy, South Carolina, Clemson, and UAB. Not a good offense in the bunch. Probably not even a good offense if you combine them all together. But still, that defense, we know from the eye test, we know from the rivals rankings, they're a nightmare. I don't see Arkansas scoring on them very much. But Georgia, as I mentioned earlier, struggled with the only really good defense they played in Clemson. So JT Daniels is going to have to go up against another good defense, a great defensive scheme by Odom. I don't see how this gets above 48.5. I see a 24-3 game, 24-10 game, something like that. I don't see this getting to be 31-17. We still have the under. I don't see it getting there. So come on, 48.5. That's easy. All right, over to you, Ben.
I like that, Mike. But didn't you get burned last time you took the under? Because didn't the Dogs offense just explode?
No, that was Doc. Doc took UAB Georgia under.
That's right. Sorry, Billy. Well, again, sticking to the computer models, I know nothing about this team, either team. In fact, I just learned this morning that both of these teams were 4-0. We're going, that's right, Baylor, Oklahoma State. Computer models have Baylor winning narrowly, yet they're getting 3.5 from Vegas, so give me Baylor plus 3.5. An ugly matchup. I did actually watch a little bit of Auburn and Georgia State last week, and I think Bo Nix was the problem. And I think Auburn turns a corner, and the computer models see that a little bit too. So give me Auburn over LSU plus 3.5. That's going to be an ugly game, and I really don't feel good about that. But again, when you have a strategy, you don't stray from it. You keep pounding it.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't want to watch that.
Can you send me the link to those algorithms? Because they're sounding right. They're sounding good.
All
right, here comes
from his literal computer.
Oh, you gotta actually send it to me in the snail mail. Shoot it over my way. All right, into the whammies. I saw this line. This line made my eyes pop out like a cartoon. Baltimore at Denver. Baltimore +1. Taking it all day. Baltimore wins this game. Justin Tucker's out there kicking NFL record 66-yard kicks that hit the crossbar and roll in. This Ravens team is a team of destiny. Yes, I know Lamar is questionable. It's general soreness, everyone. It's not a knee. It's not an elbow. The guy's just sore. He got dinged up a little bit in that game. Who doesn't? He's going to come out. He's going to be ready to roll. I think they pick up their run game a little bit, which other than Von Miller on that Denver defense, not too sold on their run-stopping abilities. It's at Mile High, so, that ball's going to fly. Lamar's going to do a little flick of the wrist. That ball's going 50 yards down the field. I love Baltimore here +1. Easiest line of the week.
I mean, the Broncos have played, the Texans, the Jets, and the Jaguars, which is not great. But next time I put in a sick leave request at work, I'm just going to put in general soreness. That's something that I feel every day anyway. And so I'm going to have to take the day off. I'm just generally not feeling great. For me, I'm going to be a hypocrite. I give Doc so much shit for this. I give Doc infinite amounts of shit for picking Iowa State and the Vikings. I say, Doc, bet with your brain, not your heart. Doc's reasoning is typically something of the line of, I don't know, Baylor's terrible. Like, why are they terrible? I don't know, a bunch of idiot bears from HGTV. So I'm going to go with my heart with no good reason. I'm going with Ole Miss +14.5. Ole Miss is scoring the ball at will. They lead the FBS in points per game. Matt Corral, it takes dynamic quarterbacks to compete with Alabama. Johnny Manziel, Tim Tebow, Swag Kelly, Bo Wallace, Steven Garcia. We've got another one on hand.
Enough.
Right. Bryce Young, I think, will have a fine day, but I think Ole Miss will get a turnover or two. Nothing really I need to say to that. But Lane Kiffin had Saban's number last year on offense, scored at will, put up the most points on Saban all year on a very good defense. You've been able to run the ball against Alabama. I like Ole Miss's backs better than I like Florida's backs. Florida ran it at will against Alabama. You've got a three-headed monster there. A lot of guys staying fresh. Ole Miss coming off a bye week where you have 2 weeks to prepare, 2 weeks to get rested, to get over your general soreness. So +14.5. I like the money line, but you're giving me 14.5. Of course I'm going to take that. I don't see this getting above that. And if I miss this bet and Ole Miss gets blown out, not only will I be upset about my whammy, which I'm 0 for 3 on the year with, I will be upset for me personally. So it's a double whammy. So if Ole Miss does get blown out by Alabama by more than 14.5, check on me, please.
Michael, are your picks? I mean, Billy, are your picks written in ink?
Yes.
Well, then I'm sorry. The computer
actually tattooed on my calf for this week. That's how good I feel.
The computer model has, and I agree with your pick and all your reasons. The computer model has Georgia, Arkansas hitting the over.
Where's this computer?
Ron
Swanson treatment.
I think it's on a mountain in Washington State somewhere under like max security.
I got the vaccine, so they'll know I'm coming.
I like before I get to my whammy, the Ole Miss Alabama game feels too perfect for Ole Miss, which really scares me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. The bye week, like Matt Corral looking so good, Lane Kiffin feeling so comfortable. It just seems like one that Alabama could win by 3 touchdowns and like everyone looks dumb. But
I'm afraid of.
I hope I'm wrong. Billy, you already had this pick, but it's my whammy, and that's because the computer models have Maryland just stomping Iowa. And they're also getting 3.5. So give me Maryland plus 3.5, and just hammer the money line while you're at it.
Turtles.
Yeah.
Is your computer named Wally?
No, it is not a Pixar character, Doc. It is a sophisticated machine that only picks winners.
Did you see Doc loading that up in his head of I cannot wait to get this joke out. I got this Wally thing locked and loaded for Ben's stupid computer. He could barely get that out in time.
Well, I was just glad I didn't laugh through it. That's all I'm happy with.
Mm-hmm. So our last story that we want to talk about is Jacqueline Lee, a reporter for 6 ABC in Philadelphia, was all over Twitter yesterday for tweeting a couple pictures of edibles. Said, beware, as Halloween gets closer, Ben Salem police are warning parents to look at your child's candy before they eat it. They confiscated these snacks that look a lot like the real thing. All are laced with THC at 6 ABC. It's a picture of Nerd Rope, Sweet Tarts, Cheetos, which I didn't know that there was edibles mixed with Cheetos. So that's kind of horrifying. Yeah. I don't want to know what's the crunchy part. Don't tell me. And then Stoner Patch that look like Sour Patch Kids. I love that she capitalized look, or warning parents to look at your child's candy. It's almost just like assuming you piece of shit parents. For once in your life, will you look at your kid's candy? And did y'all get warned about this as kids? That they're
like razor blades.
I heard razor blades too growing up. Doc, did y'all hear this?
As razor blades and then like pins, like they use for sewing, like hold stuff in because they make a really small hole. You don't have to open it. That's what my mom was always afraid of. But yeah, anything this crazy. This is wild.
My parents never. I always would hear this in school or would see it on the news. My parents never once went through our candy. I don't know if that's because I'm one of 4, and so they're just like, whatever. I mean, if he dies, he dies. If there's drugs in there, then we can relax a little bit. That's another thing. Like if you're a parent, and I'm not one, but all the parents I know are just like, oh my God, this kid's nuts. He's just like never stops. And so I'd love some time to myself. You would think like, hey, my kid, instead of getting a sugar rush, is actually chill as shit and just wants to hang on his iPad all day. That's a break for you. So she'd be like, parents, look, you may be in store for like an actual evening you can hang out. Or it's saying, hey, parents, look, because why are we so worried about people giving away their drugs? If there's one thing I feel confident in this world, it's that people who do drugs don't tend to like to give them away, especially for free. And so I don't know why they're just like, you know what these guys who do drugs are going to do? They're going to give them to your kids for free. No, they're going to wait till they're 16 and then hang out behind the buses and sell it to them. What are you talking about? They're going to give it to them for free. It's not even an addictive drug. And so parents, you may be getting free weed. So maybe look through your child's candy for that free hookup. Like, if you find this, don't be like, I can't believe someone didn't give me this. I can't believe someone didn't give me this. Blah 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 blah. No, you get free weed. Be happy about it. So that's pretty great, no?
Yeah, but some. Go ahead.
It sounds. I don't understand how they can say these are laced when the packaging all indicates it contains THC.
They're not being terribly secretive about it. The Sour Patch Kids are called Stoner Patch Kids.
Yeah. And then B, to your point, like 911, what's your emergency? My kids won't stop watching Seth Rogen movies. We're like, okay. I don't see a problem with it. I need to have kids to get some free weed, I guess.
What are we thinking here?
Unless that one house on the corner is just mixing up like plastic bags of gummy bears, I think you're fine.
I mean, what's the biggest harm here? What do they think is going to happen to their kids? Like, hey, to use Ben's example, 911. It's like, yeah, it's like my son's just like really relaxed. Like, okay, does he seem fine? Like he's eating a ton. But yeah, kids tend to have big appetites. Just like, yeah. So then he keeps like seeing how big his hand is and talking about like how big the universe is, but how small we are. It's like, man, please, this is for emergencies only. Like, I can understand being worried about a razor blade if that was ever fucking a thing. Like, I've never heard of that actually happening. This is like the whole Halloween people doing stuff to your candy is essentially like an email thread from AOL in the early 2000s where it's like send to 10 people or like Freddy Krueger is going to appear in your window or something like that. It was just like a scare tactic that just has to keep getting passed on. It's like, oh, it's about that time. We should make up shit about razor blades and candy before Halloween starts. I don't get this. When has this ever happened? And if you put a razor blade in a Snickers bar, I'd be like, there it is. Ow. Found it.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's not like a kid just shoving a candy bar with wrapper in his mouth, like immediately. Like, what are you talking about?
If that happens, you got to have another talk with your kid. Because maybe you can spend that college fund you've been saving on. All right. Well, Ben, do you have a message for everyone before Halloween? Maybe a safety advisory?
I mean, trick or treat sounds a whole lot better now than it used to when we were kids. I mean, trick or treat and chill. That was bad. That was just bad.
Ben's gonna be texting Doc. Please edit that out. And I'm gonna be texting Doc. Please don't. Please, absolutely.
My message is I'm glad we're pulling in the footsteps of Target and just talking about Halloween a whole month early.
I was on a walk in my neighborhood and someone has Halloween stuff out. I called the police.
Psychos.
A month is appropriate.
I just looked at my watch to say it's November. That's not something that my watch tells me. Doc, please also edit that out because that makes me feel dumb. Maybe I was a kid. All right, well, that'll do it for us. Thanks, as always, for listening. You can check us out on YouTube, on our channel, on Instagram, at Spaghetti Junction Boys, on Twitter, at SJB Atlanta, at www.sjbatlanta.com. Be sure to subscribe, rate, listen, review. Thanks, as always, for all that y'all do, and we will see you next week.